Meng Zhinyan looked down on my humble origins and entrusted our son's upbringing to the daughter of his esteemed teacher. During the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival, my Qingwan abandoned our 6-year-old son Hanger in the bustling streets under the pretext of training his courage. The moment I found the child, I was drenched and felt as if I had died once. Returning home, I saw Meng Zhinyan admiring the moon in the courtyard with my Qingwan and her child. Laughter and joy filled the air, making it seem like a happy family of 3. That night, after I had coaxed Hanger to sleep, I brought up the topic of separation. Meng Zhinyan's face turned cold. "Do you realize what you're saying?" My numb spirit finally returned to my body, and his voice, as if coming through heavy curtains, struck my ears with cold, deliberate words. "Why make such a fuss over such a trivial matter? It's merely to train Hanger's courage, with servants accompanying him on both sides. How could he possibly get lost? No matter how much it pains you, you must endure it for now. A piece of jade cannot be polished without friction. Hanger's timid nature requires discipline, and although Qingwan's method may seem harsh, it is for his own good." The man's voice was not loud, but his gaze was calm and profound, carrying the authority of someone long accustomed to being in a position of power. In the 6 years since returning to the capital, Meng Zhinyan's career had advanced smoothly, and his temperament had grown increasingly sharp, decisive, and unapproachable. I looked up at him, feeling another sharp pain in my heart. On the Mid-Autumn Festival, a time for family reunions, I almost lost my own child. Hanger is as precious to me as a treasure. He is my life. How could Meng Zhinyan not know? He also understood that my Qingwan was deliberately testing Hanger, but he tacitly allowed it. Yesterday, Meng Zhinyan invited a few friends to the mansion to admire the chrysanthemums. In the midst of the lively drinking and merriment, someone jokingly suggested testing Hanger on his studies, a poem of nearly 100 words, and Hanger stumbled through reciting it. My Qingwan's son, Zheng Lin, however, recited it fluently in one breath. Hanger's little face turned pale, growing more and more frightened. In front of everyone, Meng Zhinyan was utterly humiliated. Thus, all that has happened today is a form of punishment. I thought of how, when I found Hanger tonight, he was huddled in the corner trembling, so frightened that he was unable to speak. My gaze fixed firmly on his face, and for the first time, I did not back down. If anything had happened to Hanger tonight, what would you have done? The candle flame crackled with a sharp pop. Meng Zhinyan was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled wryly. "Qingwan has always been sensible in her actions. Besides, I am here, and I will never let such a thing happen." How laughable that sounded. He instructed the servants to follow at a distance, while he himself returned to the residence with my Qingwan and her son. If something were to go wrong, by the time the servants rushed back to report it, it would likely be too late. Meng Zhinyan underestimated the strength of a woman as a mother. If something were to go wrong tonight, I would probably take up a knife and fight him to the death. Perhaps seeing my face was too pale, Meng Zhinyan finally softened his tone. "When I was young, I was mischievous and didn't like studying, and my father was just as strict. Parents who love their children plan for their long-term future. I am Hanger's biological father. After all, it's all for his own good. Don't feel wronged." Meng Zhinyan knew it all too well in his heart. As a lone woman, I had nowhere to go if I left the Meng residence. Hanger is the eldest son and grandson of the Meng family, so he absolutely cannot stay by my side. No matter what, for the sake of this weakness, I will always compromise. But this time, he was wrong. Life has been too smooth, to the point where he has forgotten. 6 years ago, the Meng family's old case was reopened, and the outcome remains uncertain. Meng Zhinyan, fearing that I and the unborn child would be implicated, personally wrote a letter of divorce. He signed it and stamped it with his seal. To this day, that letter of divorce still lies at the bottom of my dowry chest. At 1001 Meng Zhinyan went to the bathhouse to wash up. I lowered my head and gazed at the little one in my arms. My heart was still pounding violently in my chest. My heart still fluttered with fear. Hunger's breathing gradually evened out, with tiny teardrops still clinging to his eyelashes. My arms had long gone numb, yet I couldn't bear to put him down. It's laughable to say, but in 6 years of motherhood, moments of such closeness have been few and far between. I suffered a difficult labor and postpartum hemorrhage when giving birth to Hanger, leaving my body severely depleted. Hanger had just turned 1 when my mother-in-law, claiming I was not taking good care of him, forcibly took him to raise under her own care. I missed my child day and night, shedding tears constantly. Despite my repeated protests, Meng Jinyan tried to console me. Arjun, I know it's hard for you to let go, but Hanger's upbringing is a serious matter. Would you really want to hinder his future? I understood the deeper meaning behind his words. In the past, the Meng family was involved in a major corruption case, and the entire family was exiled. It was I, a lone girl from the countryside, who provided support and care, allowing the Meng family to endure until the day their case was overturned. 1 year after our marriage, the Meng family was reinstated, and their wrongful conviction was cleared. For a time, Meng Jinyan and I were celebrated as a legendary love story in the capital, through hardship and prosperity, a rare bond of gratitude and marriage. But when it comes to Hanger, it's a different story. How can the eldest son and grandson of a noble family be raised by a mother of humble origins? For the sake of Hanger's future, I have no choice but to let go with a heavy heart. At first, Meng Jinyan clearly cared about both me and Hanger as well. He pitied my longing for my son, so whenever my mother-in-law left home to pray at the temple, he would bring Hanger to reunite with me. The little one came running toward me with a smile, and I quickly reached out my hands to welcome him. When his warm, soft body crashed into my embrace, all those grievances vanished into thin air. At the age of 3, when it was time to begin his education, Meng Jinyan, without telling her mother-in-law, had me set up a desk outside the study to watch Hanger study. The teacher was old, and after eating the snacks I brought at noon, he would always take a nap first. During these rare moments of leisure, Hanger and I always found many fun ways to play: flying kites, kicking shuttlecocks, playing hide and seek. Meng Jinyan always watched our playful antics with a smile, his gaze filled with adoration and tenderness. On every day off, he would perch Hanger on his shoulders, take my hand, and stroll through the market with me. Perhaps it was because, back when the Meng family's old case was being re-examined, I was constantly worried about Meng Jinyan returning to the capital day and night. Hanger was frightened while still in my womb, and as a result, he is naturally introverted and not fond of speaking. Mother-in-law was displeased. So Meng Jinyan held Hanger in his arms, proudly declaring that the child possessed great wisdom that appeared as foolishness, and was certainly no worse than other children. Later on, when did things start to change? It was probably about a year ago, when my Qingwan brought Zhang Lin to the capital. She was the daughter of Meng Jinyan's mentor. The Mai family had fallen into hardship, and the entire family was exiled. She had placed her trust in the wrong person and ended up divorcing her husband. Her mother-in-law, pitying her loneliness and helplessness, specially brought her into the residence to settle her. Only my Qingwan insisted on not accepting unearned rewards and recommended herself to become Hanger's tutor, drawing a monthly allowance from the family funds. She had long been known for her talent and taught Hanger with utmost dedication. Her mother-in-law and Meng Jinyan were naturally satisfied. But I see Hanger less and less. The maids who usually served Hanger were all sold off by my mother-in-law for some unknown offense. All those left around me are unfamiliar faces. I can't even enter the study hall, let alone inquire about Hanger's news. I went to find my Qingwan, but her words, "Studying requires a quiet mind, and it was also permitted by the adults," left me speechless. My Qingwan said that mastery comes from diligence and is lost through playfulness. The small boat I personally carved for Hanger had not yet reached his hands before it was sent back. Hanger cried and insisted on seeing me, so my Qingwan told my mother-in-law that the young master was growing older and, being overly influenced by his mother's soft and indulgent nature, might struggle to become independent in the future. Because of this remark, my mother-in-law even revoked the opportunity for me to see Hanger on the 1st and 15th of each month, insisting that the child focus solely on his studies. Hanger's academic progress was rapid, but he was like a seedling deprived of water, growing increasingly dull and listless. The light in the 6-year-old child's eyes gradually dimmed. I watched with growing anxiety, but Meng Jinyan remained indifferent. Reading cultivates understanding and naturally nurtures a calm temperament. Lina is only 2 years older, yet his words and actions already show discipline. In contrast, Hunger is simply like unworkable wood that cannot be carved. With Zheng Lin as a comparison, Meng Zhinian increasingly felt that Hunger was timid and unpromising, growing more disappointed by the day. He specifically warned me about this. A strict teacher produces outstanding students. Do not show womanly compassion and ruin Hunger's future prospects. For this reason, I swallowed all my heartache and endured repeatedly. Only today have I finally seen my Qingwan's true nature. She is deliberately raising Hunger to be useless. At 1001 hash, the next morning, my Qingwan came to apologize to me. Last night, I was too hasty and didn't think things through properly, which frightened Hunger. It was my fault. Every word was sincere, and every sentence was an admission of guilt. Her tearful eyes were pitiful and captivating. I was busy with my own tasks and didn't respond. My Qingwan was momentarily stunned, then nudged Zheng Lin. The child immediately knelt down with a thud, pleading for mercy for his mother. This scene was witnessed by Meng Zhinian, who had just arrived. He immediately shielded my Qingwan and her son behind him, his tone icy. Qingwan only has good intentions. Why must you be so relentless and disturb the peace of our home? A familiar bitterness welled up in my nose. Suppressing the surging emotions, I looked straight into his eyes and said coldly, I must seek justice for Hunger. My Qingwan tugged on Meng Zhinian's sleeve, softening her voice. Madam is right. This grievance must be settled one way or another. I shall go bid farewell to the matriarch and leave today. Meng Zhinian furrowed his brows tightly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard his mother-in-law exclaim loudly, Nonsense! Who dares to drive Wanna away? Yesterday, my mother-in-law went to the temple to pray for blessings and only returned today. I don't know what the servants said to her, but she looked at me with an angry expression. In my opinion, Hunger's timid nature is an inherent flaw, just like his mother's. No matter how much effort you put into teaching him, Wanna, it will be useless. These words are truly heart-wrenching. I can barely stand steady. Meng Zhinian steadied me inside. Mother, please be careful with your words. Arjun is just worried about Hunger and acted out of concern. Qingwan, offer Arjun a cup of tea, and let this matter be over. He took it upon himself to forgive my Qingwan on my behalf. When the cup of tea was handed to me, I didn't hesitate and immediately splashed it over. Even Meng Zhinian, who was standing nearby, got splashed all over. My mother-in-law gasped in shock, and Meng Zhinian's face instantly turned ashen. My Qingwan is right. For Hunger's sake, I must get this grievance settled. I no longer care about anything else. In a few more days, once everything is arranged, I will take Hunger and leave. At 1001 hash. Meng Zhinian was angry all day and didn't return to the courtyard until sunset. He said my Qingwan insisted on leaving and had already reached the dock. But it was his mother who rushed over to persuade her to come back. If you're still upset, your husband is also at fault. You can scold or hit me as you wish. His gaze lingered on my face for a moment, and his voice turned colder. Qingwan, as a widow with a child, already struggles to make her way in this world. Why must you repeatedly make things difficult for her? I tightened my grip on the handkerchief in my hand, a bitter taste rising in my throat. This was the first time he had ever bowed his head and admitted his mistake to me, yet it was all for the sake of another woman. As we spoke, Hunger slowly woke up. I had nightmares several times last night and only just fell asleep a short while ago. Perhaps hearing us arguing, Hunger lifted his little face and said softly, Mother, Hunger is fine. Please don't blame Father anymore. These words shattered the strength I had been forcing myself to maintain since last night, leaving me completely defenseless. He cautiously looked at Meng Zhinian, mustered his courage, and somewhat embarrassedly defended himself. Daddy, although Hunger was very scared last night, Hunger really didn't cry. Does this count as having the spirit of a man? Meng Zhinian's expression softened slightly, and he nodded in a daze. Hunger reached out from my arms, grabbed his sleeve, and shook it timidly as he asked, Father, could you like Hunger just a little bit more? You don't have to like me as much as you like Brother Lin, just a little more than before. Is that okay? The child's innocent voice echoed in the silent room. My heart suddenly ached. and I couldn't help but feel pity for his longing for fatherly love. Meng Xinyan crouched down in front of Henge, his throat moving a few times before he spoke gently. It's father's fault for making Henge sad. It won't happen again. He looked up and happened to see the scattered jewelry on my desk. What are you doing with these? I quickly gathered them up and put them into the dressing case. According to the elders, gold and silver can calm fright, so we'll use them to soothe Henge. Meng Xinyan didn't think much about it. After a moment of contemplation, he finally gave in. When Henge's health improves a bit, let him study at the Whitebird Academy. The Whitebird Academy is known to everyone in the capital. The headmaster is a great scholar of our time, who adheres to the principle of teaching students according to their aptitude and emphasizes the enlightenment of the mind. The academy is extremely selective in admitting disciples, enrolling no more than a few dozen students each year. Given Meng Xinyan's current official position, securing a place for him would still require expending considerable personal influence. I lowered my gaze, looking at the obedient Henge in my arms, and finally agreed, all right. At 1001 hash, this opportunity, in the end, did not fall upon Henge. Meng Xinyan lost a precious ancient inkstone. His study is not accessible to ordinary people. Last time Henge was frightened. Meng Xinyan felt guilty and allowed him to read in the study. That ancient inkstone was found in Henge's book bag. By the time I arrived, Henge had been kneeling on the ground for who knows how long. His small body trembled with fear. Even his voice was shaking. Mother, please believe Henge. Henge did not steal anything. This cry brought tears to my eyes. My Qingwan sighed deeply, her heart filled with pain and regret. During daily lessons, I clearly teach them the same way. Just the other day, Lina returned the money he found without keeping it. Yet today Henge tried to hide the inkstone in Lin's book bag, intending to frame him. I picked up Henge, almost grinding my teeth to dust. The matter hasn't been fully investigated yet. How can you jump to conclusions? Meng Xinyan slammed his palm on the table, his eyes wide with fury. Lina saw it with his own eyes, caught red-handed. Just how long are you going to keep spoiling him? My Qingwan lowered her gaze, concealing the sharp glint in her eyes, her tone growing even more earnest. Please calm your anger, my lord. Henge is pure-hearted by nature. It's understandable that he was momentarily led astray and sought revenge for the incident during the Lantern Festival. Slap. I strode forward and, with almost all my strength, slapped my Qingwan across the face. Do you really think I don't know what you've done to Henge this year? After saying this, I turned to look at Meng Xinyan. Can't you see who is really sowing discord? You'd rather believe that woman and her son than listen to a single word of defense from Henge. Meng Xinyan stared at me in disbelief, the veins on his forehead bulging, his breathing unsteady, stubborn, and unyielding. That spot at Whitebird Academy shall be given to Lina. With Henge's character, if he goes, wouldn't it only bring shame upon me? He took a deep breath and issued his final ultimatum. Since you are determined to protect this good-for-nothing, pack your things tomorrow and take him to the estate outside the city to reflect. You and your son may return only when you have realized your mistakes. Facing Meng Xinyan's look of disgust, my heart remained calm and undisturbed, supported by the maid as she left. My Qingwan kept her head lowered, her eyes misty with tears, and the corners of her mouth lifted ever so slightly. I had no time to appreciate her smugness and quickly led Henge back to the room. By the time my mother-in-law arrived upon hearing the news, Henge and I had already packed our belongings and boarded the carriage waiting at the back door. At 1001 hash, Meng Xinyan slowly began to sense that something was amiss. That day, overwhelmed by emotion, I spoke without thinking, watching the carriage gradually fade into the distance. For some reason, a strange feeling stirred within me. Arjun has always been gentle and quiet in nature, rarely showing such fierce determination. Could it be that I truly wronged her and her son? I had intended to investigate the matter, but I was tied up with official duties and simply couldn't spare the time. After the official business was concluded, half a month had already passed. Meng Xinyan personally went to the estate. No matter what, he would bring them back first and then discuss the rest. The conditions at the estate were not as good as in the mansion. After all, he couldn't bear to see the mother and child suffer. But when he arrived at the estate, The steward looked completely bewildered. "Master, the mistress and the young master have not come here." Meng Xinyan suspected he had misheard, but after repeatedly confirming, he realized that Arjun and her son had indeed not come to the estate. He breathed heavily, his mind in turmoil, and immediately sent people to search for them. Returning home in a daze, my Qingwan was waiting at the door with Zheng Lin, greeting them with a beaming smile. Meng Xinyan was somewhat agitated, his mind preoccupied with worries, and his expression naturally looked unpleasant. My Qingwan noticed something was amiss. Upon making inquiries, she soon learned the whole story and went that very night to apologize before the elderly lady. It was all Lina's fault for speaking the truth in public and causing discord between the master and his wife. However, the wife's temper is also too strong. How could she act on impulse over a momentary anger? Before she could finish her words, the old lady's eyes reddened with anger. In front of her son, she slammed the teacup down heavily and scolded furiously. "That foolish woman thinks that by taking Hunger away, she can control you and me. What a pipe dream. Without the Meng family, she and her son are nothing. The Meng family cannot tolerate such a woman who oversteps her bounds and uses her child to assert her importance. If you still acknowledge me as your mother, write a letter of divorce at once and cast Shenzhen out." A letter of divorce? Meng Xinyan's heart trembled, suddenly recalling past events. Thinking back to the jewelry on the table that day, a vague suspicion began to form in his mind. When he finally held the divorce letter from the bottom of the chest, a cold sweat broke out on his back. The crimson official seal on it stung his fingertips painfully. He collapsed into the chair, nearly exhausted. The ups and downs of the Meng family in the past taught him how important it is to flatter and be tactful in official circles. He hoped his son would become a dragon, a great success, and was strict with Hunger out of frustration that the iron had not yet turned to steel. As for Qingwan, their youthful friendship was nothing more than a helping hand. She also had good intentions for Hunger. Arjun didn't understand, so she resented and blamed him. He always thought that there would be plenty of time in the future, and she would eventually understand, but what he never expected was that Arjun, who had always been obedient to him in everything, would dare to divorce him behind his back and even take Hunger away with her. It was like a thunderclap, shattering his mind and heart. The thought of a widow and her orphan child wandering destitute outside was too perilous to dwell on. He immediately dispatched more people overnight to search everywhere. By the flickering candlelight, he paced back and forth, rubbing his temples anxiously as he waited for news. Little did he expect that this wait would last 10 years. He waited and waited at the Shun residence that day, but still failed to meet the young national artisan. It is said that this young man, surnamed Shun, only 16 years old, possesses unfathomable ingenuity in the art of shipbuilding. Nowadays, the Eastern Sea Fleet is weak, and pirates repeatedly invade the coastal borders, causing the emperor to worry day and night. The ship design he presented can sail twice as fast as the old vessels and carry 30% more cannons. Jane is in the emperor's favor, and her success is just around the corner. Those with well-informed sources had already seized opportunities to curry favor. Unfortunately, this was the third time he had been turned away. Just as he was preparing to head back, he caught sight of a familiar, graceful figure passing through the moon gate. Meng Xinyan rubbed his eyes, nearly stunned, murmuring softly, "Arjun." At 1001 I instinctively turned to look, meeting a pair of startled eyes. The scissors in my hand slipped half an inch, and a pot of orchid grass was the unfortunate victim. 10 years have passed, and Meng Xinyan has grown a bit thinner. Perhaps due to excessive worry in daily life, his temples have faintly begun to show traces of white frost. Before returning to the capital with Hunger, I knew that there would eventually be a day when I would see him again. It's just that I didn't expect it to be so soon. "Arjun." Meng Xinyan's voice was terribly hoarse. "Is it really you?" I lowered my gaze, concealing the surging emotions in my heart. For a moment, there was only endless silence. "Shenzhen." Meng Xinyan gritted my name through his teeth, a mix of pain and hatred in his voice. After a moment, he finally regained control and said in a low voice, "Do you know that I have been searching for you and Hunger for 10 years? In these 10 years, do you know how many places I have looked, seeing no way to avoid it? I lifted my gaze to meet his and calmly interrupted, Lord Meng, we have long been separated. Meng Zhinyan was somewhat taken aback, but he quickly suppressed it. I never agreed to the separation back then. It was you who took matters into your own hands and left with Henge. Indeed, I never sought his opinion back then. Seeing me remain silent, Meng Zhinyan wearily rubbed his temples and said with difficulty, back then, sending you and your son to the manor for reflection was indeed a lack of consideration on my part. Over the years, you must have suffered a lot. I won't dwell on the past anymore. It's good that you and Henge have returned. Mentioning Henge, a light shone in his eyes as he eagerly pressed, where is Henge? Let me see him. A few days ago, Henge was summoned by the emperor to discuss important matters in the palace and has not returned for several days. Involving military secrets, it's not appropriate for me to mention it, so I simply replied that he was on duty. Meng Zhinyan pondered for a moment, his gaze falling on the orchid plant I was tending to, and suddenly understood, so that's how it is. He nodded slightly, his tone somewhat enlightened. I heard this young national engineer shares your surname. Could he be a relative of yours? Since the day Henge started school, he has taken my surname. Meng Zhinyan had the wrong idea. Seeing that I remained silent, he seemed to have confirmed his thoughts and sighed. All these years, you've been angry with me, but it's Henge's future that has been delayed. This young national-level engineer is the same age as Henge. Yet his achievements are already extraordinary. If only you had been able to endure the heartache back then, with the guidance of a renowned teacher and the support of our family background, how could he have ended up in such a state today? I could hear the regret in his words. It turned out he had misunderstood, thinking that Henge and I were living in poverty and relying on others for survival. Meng Zhinyan lowered his voice a little, making plans for Henge on his own. Henge, after all, bears the surname Meng. Relying on others is not a long-term solution. In another 2 years, when it's time to discuss marriage, what will we do then? As he spoke, he went ahead and decided on the future arrangements for Henge and me. In the next couple of days, you should resign from your current position, pack your belongings, and come back to the estate with me. I will arrange a position for Henge. I felt a bit like laughing and suddenly had a mischievous thought. So I abruptly asked, Henge hasn't accomplished anything at the moment. Are you still willing to let him return to the family? Meng Zhinyan was taken aback, his lips quivered, but in the end, he said nothing. 10 years had passed, yet he had not made the slightest progress. I gradually stopped laughing and spoke solemnly. Henge's future is none of your concern. Lord Meng, please leave. At 1001 hash, Meng Zhinyan said I didn't know what was good for me, then turned and left in anger. That evening, when Henge returned home, I brought up what had happened during the day. Back then, the decision to leave with Henge was mine alone. Now that he has grown up and can make his own judgments, I am giving the choice back to him. Henge looked at me with a clear and determined gaze. Although he is my biological father, it was mother who raised me. Henge, mature beyond his years, had always been steady and composed, but now he rarely showed a hint of childish dependence, no matter what. I will always stand by mother's side. Without mother, there would be no Henge today. Memories of the past flooded my mind, and a pang of sorrow hit me, nearly bringing me to tears. As we spoke, dusk descended and a sudden downpour arrived. A sparrow in the courtyard stumbled in the wind and rain, and the mother bird swiftly swooped down, spreading her drenched wings to shield it beneath her. As I watched, my thoughts drifted back 10 years, to the day I left the estate. Just as the carriage passed through the city gate, a sudden downpour began to fall. The hired female escort asked me where I intended to go. Holding Henge tightly in my arms, I felt momentarily lost, until I saw the small boat tightly clutched in his hand. I finally made up my mind, to Jiangnan. To see the great ships that Henge has been longing for. I rented a small house near the ferry. Henge would sit on a small stool by the shore, watching the passing boats, and would stay there the entire day. Since that time he was slandered, Henge has become even less talkative. Only at such moments would he show the liveliness of a child. He brought paper and pen, quietly drawing the shape of a boat. At first, they were some naive outlines, which later gradually filled with calculation symbols. He begged me to find books on shipbuilding, and spent his days buried in making ship models from wood. The neighbors were curious why he wasn't attending school, saying that such trivial skills couldn't compare to the proper imperial examinations, and told me not to hold the child back. I smiled without speaking. If they had seen that gloomy child from the Meng residence, they wouldn't say such things. As time passed, my heart settled as well. In fact, during that first year, I was deeply tormented inside. I didn't know whether my decision was good or bad for Hanger. If he had stayed with the Meng family, he would still be a pampered young master, and without any mishaps, he would have taken the imperial exams and entered officialdom, with everything going smoothly. But following me, a commoner with no official status, he would have to strive for everything on his own. I had also considered taking him back. But Hanger twisted the hem of his clothes with his fingers and asked me uneasily, "Does mother, like father, only love Hanger when he excels in his studies?" This sentence was like a fine needle, gently pricking the softest part of my heart. I put down my needlework and patted Hanger's head. "Hanger, you are wrong. Mother loves you for who you are, not for what you have done. You don't have to be sensible and well-behaved to be worthy of love. Nor do you need to meet mother's expectations to be cared for. Love is not a choice, but unconditional acceptance." When Hanger was 8 years old, one day he suddenly said to me very seriously that he wanted to go to school. Another 6 months passed, and the teacher at the school said that Hanger had an exceptional talent for mathematics, recommending that I seek out the Hermit Liu of Songshan. I heard that this Hermit Liu was a retired master craftsman, skilled in the study of natural phenomena, especially in deduction, but he had an eccentric temperament and did not receive outsiders. I took Hanger to visit him several times, but we were always turned away at the door. Later, I swallowed my pride, brought some homemade food, and bribed the mute servant by Hermit Liu's side, finally securing an opportunity to enter the courtyard, through the window. Old man Liu caught a glimpse of Hanger using a branch to calculate with counting rods in the sand, and he was greatly astonished. From that day on, he made an exception and took Hanger as his final disciple. The old and the young formed a friendship across generations through their shared interest in mathematics. Earlier this year, the book New Explanations on Boats and Ships written by Hanger was presented to the Emperor through Old Man Liu's hands. After reading the report, His Majesty personally summoned me and, after observing the ship model demonstration, bestowed upon me the honorable title of Young National Engineer right in the court. 10 years have passed in the blink of an eye, and the child who once needed my protection has now grown into my support. At 1001 hash, Meng Zhinyan was sulking on his own. Although he hadn't seen Hanger, he could still imagine the timid demeanor the child would have when grown up, which only added to his frustration. After finishing his duties, a familiar colleague invited him for a drink. Seeing his troubled expression, the colleague assumed he had been snubbed at the Shen residence and tried to console him. A young state artisan personally summoned by His Majesty to consult on important matters in the court. How could someone like that be so easily met? Meng Zhinyan snapped out of his thoughts and forced a smile as he offered a few perfunctory words. He recalled how the Minister of Works couldn't hide his admiration when mentioning this young man yesterday. The Emperor values talent but is cautious. Aside from a few senior ministers, no one has ever seen him. They only know his surname is Shen, but not his given name. His heart was filled with envy, jealousy, and regret. If Hanger were still by his side, although far from being as outstanding as this young national engineer, at least he could have been like Lina. Taking the imperial examinations properly, securing an official position, and walking the right path. A doting mother often spoils the child, and Hanger was ultimately ruined by a woman's hand. As they spoke, an elderly man in plain clothing stopped under the corridor, looking over with a smile. Meng Zhinyan hurried forward with quick steps and bowed deeply in salute. It must be known that although Scholar Liu held no official rank, he was the former emperor's mentor and renowned far and wide. "I heard that you came to the capital this time to pave the way for that last disciple of yours." Meng Zhinyan sighed inwardly, but flattered him with his words. "I have long admired your reputation, and I've heard that the talented disciples under your guidance are rare geniuses. Your discerning eye in recognizing talent is truly admirable." Liu Shanren stroked his beard, his gaze seeming to appraise him with a meaningful look, and said with a laugh, "My disciple is merely a bit more obsessed than others, willing to put relentless effort into what he loves." Speaking of his childhood hardships, he shifted the topic. Had it not been for his mother's resilience, shielding him from storms and giving her all, he wouldn't be where he is today. Meng Xinyan didn't ponder deeply, taking it as ordinary sentiment, and chimed in, "The depth of a mother's love is truly touching. I imagine Lady Shen must be an extraordinary woman, capable of nurturing such a remarkably talented young prodigy." He spoke with sincerity, but in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness, thinking that if Arjun had even half the insight of this Lady Shen, things back then wouldn't have ended up like this. The mountain hermit's hand, which had been stroking his beard, paused slightly, and he could barely suppress the mockery in his eyes. He invited Meng Xinyan to attend his birthday banquet 3 days later, emphasizing specifically, "At that time, my disciple and his mother will also be present." The mountain hermit paused meaningfully. "As it happens, my disciple is from the same hometown as Lord Meng, both are from Huainan." Meng Xinyan was even more delighted upon hearing this, feeling that he had grown closer to this young national engineer. He was completely unaware of the deeper meaning in Old Man Liu's words. At 1001 on the day of Old Man Liu's 60th birthday banquet, the capital city was unusually clear and sunny. As he stepped down from the carriage, he happened to run into my Qingwan. She was dressed in full regalia, her beauty undiminished. Not long ago, Zheng Lin achieved the top rank in the provincial examination and is now at the peak of his glory. Seeing me, my Qingwan was somewhat surprised. "Sister Shen, why are you here? Could it be that you are unaware that even the young men attending today's banquet must have passed the child scholar examination? Today's birthday banquet has invited distinguished guests and disciples of high status. My presence here is indeed out of the ordinary." Her gaze lightly swept past behind me, and the smile at the corner of her lips deepened. "Why isn't Hanger here?" Then again, in such a setting that tests one's talent and learning, it would indeed be difficult for him if he had come. I walked straight ahead without glancing sideways, passing by her to the front of the mansion. The steward of the Liu residence had been waiting for a long time. Upon seeing me, he quickly bowed and saluted. "Madam Shen, you've finally arrived. My master specifically instructed that you are an honored guest of the household. Please come to the flower hall first for a conversation." My Qingwan was taken aback, the smile on her face freezing. After finishing my conversation with the mountain hermit Liu in the flower hall, I turned the corner of the corridor and unexpectedly saw Meng Xinyan. He probably thought I had come to the Liu residence to help with the banquet preparations, so he looked around cautiously and only approached to block my path when he saw no one else was nearby. "Arjun, I know you're still angry with me. I've thought a lot these past few days. Although Hanger may be of average ability and not as clever as Lina, he is still my son, the bloodline of our Meng family. Come back to the residence with me and let Hanger be recognized as part of the family. From now on, I will discipline him properly. Even if he doesn't achieve great scholarly success, it wouldn't be so bad for him to live as a wealthy idler. After all, Lina will uphold the family's honor." I remained silent for a long moment, feeling nothing but absurdity. During this time, I had also inquired about Meng Xinyan's news. I heard that he had adopted Zheng Lin as his godson and was pouring all his efforts into nurturing him. Not only did he personally invite renowned teachers for him, but he also brought him to banquets hosted by important court officials, teaching him the ways of officialdom hand in hand. It was clear that he had placed all his hopes for revitalizing the Meng family's prestige on Zheng Lin. I looked directly into his eyes and reminded him once again, "Meng Xinyan, I am unwilling, and Hanger is unwilling too. There's no need to say more." A flicker of surprise crossed Meng Xinyan's eyes. He thought that by taking a step back, I would follow suit and yield as well. "Arjun, you've already said such angry words twice. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on him, so I turned and left, passing through several ceremonial gates. The courtyard where the banquet was being held was already filled with laughter and lively chatter. Hanger had gone out early in the morning to fetch a birthday gift for his esteemed teacher, and he should be arriving any moment now. Sure enough, From afar, I could hear the robust and spirited boasting of old man Liu Shan. In my later years, to have a disciple like Shunheng is truly the will of heaven. This boy's ingenuity in the study of natural phenomena and creation of devices, his cleverness and high comprehension, far surpass what I was in my youth. As the name Shunheng fell upon my ears, the corner of my lips curved upward almost imperceptibly. Just at that moment, a clear and affectionate call came, "Mother." Everyone turned to look and saw a young man in a moon-white scholar's robe walking over with a smile. He stood tall and straight, with clear eyebrows and bright eyes, the very disciple that the mountain hermit Liu had just praised so highly. It seemed as if the entire autumn garden had brightened a little. When he saw the young man's face clearly, Meng Xinyan suddenly froze. Hunger, at 1001 in the women's seating area. An official's wife who had interacted with me in earlier years recognized me and hesitantly called out Madam Meng. Her words drew the attention of several noblewomen nearby. Back in the day, when Meng Xinyan and I separated, perhaps it wasn't a very honorable matter, so the Meng family didn't publicize it. They only said that Hunger was ill and that I took him to seek medical treatment elsewhere. Before I could respond, the lady had already stepped forward quickly, took my hand, and said with a smile, "It really is Mrs. Meng. Come quickly and see. This is the mother of the young national engineer." Everyone then realized that it was the Meng family's lady who had returned to the capital after 10 years away, and her son had even become the young national engineer appointed by the emperor. Several ladies naturally gathered around as they spoke, one praising Hunger for his intelligence, another commending me for my excellent parenting. The lady who had spoken earlier personally picked up the teapot to pour tea for me, asking in detail how I had raised such an outstanding child. Surrounded by them, I was momentarily busy responding. Amid the chorus of praise and discussion, only my Qingwan and her son had ashen faces, barely suppressing the jealousy in their eyes. Meng Xinyan was also frozen in place. His gaze was complex, his face deathly pale. Just as he was about to speak, a sharp, high-pitched announcement rang out. "The imperial decree has arrived." In an instant, the entire garden fell into silence. Everyone hastily left their seats and knelt on the ground. The eunuch delivering the decree first extended birthday wishes to the mountain hermit Liu, then walked directly to Hunger and read aloud the bright yellow imperial decree in his hand. "To you, Shunheng, heaven has bestowed extraordinary talent and unique ingenuity. Your achievements in shipbuilding will benefit generations to come. We hereby appoint you as the assistant director of the palace buildings, specifically in charge of warship construction. Additionally, we grant you the title of Hanlin Academy attendant, permitting you to enter the palace at any time to present memorials to Shenzhen for your virtuous instruction and successful upbringing of your son, in accordance with regulations. We specially confer upon you the title of 5th rank lady, permitting you to wear the official headdress and robes, to honor your virtuous character." I was momentarily stunned, unaware of when Hunger had requested this honor for me. Hunger steadily received the imperial edict, then turned to help me rise. From beginning to end, he did not cast a single glance at Meng Xinyan, who was kneeling to the side. It wasn't until he was about to leave that the eunuch seemed to notice Meng Xinyan, suddenly exclaiming, "Forgive my poor eyesight. Lord Meng is here as well. Your son is young and promising, having received the emperor's favor. I suppose you must share in the honor, Lord Meng." As he spoke, he seemed to suddenly remember something, covering his lips with his sleeve and laughing. "Look at my memory, I actually forgot that you and Madam Shun divorced 10 years ago, with the child following the mother. In that case, today's promotion and rewards for Supervisor Shun bring glory to Madam Shun's household, and it really has nothing to do with you." These words completely tore apart the dignity Meng Xinyan had been struggling to maintain. Whispers immediately arose all around. Meng Xinyan withdrew his gaze from Hunger as if scalded. He staggered, nearly losing his balance. I was surrounded by the congratulating ladies. By the time I remembered this person, they were no longer in their original place, at 1001 When Meng Xinyan returned home in a daze, his mother called out to him, "I heard from Qingwan that Shenzhen, that woman, has brought Hunger back." I suppose life has been difficult for the mother and child, which is why they've finally lowered their heads and returned. As for Henge, you must bring him back. Though he shows little promise in his studies and can't compare to Lina in the slightest, he is, after all, the legitimate grandson of the Meng family. He cannot be left to drift outside. As for Shenzhen, since she had the pride to leave back then, if she wishes to return now, she must break that arrogance of hers, demote her from wife to concubine, only then may she enter the gates of our Meng family. It was as if only at this moment that he suddenly realized how lightly his mother regarded Shenzhen. Because he looked down on Shenzhen, he also looked down on Henge. He sat down weakly, smiled self-mockingly, and simply decided to let things take their own course. Henge is now a young state artisan personally appointed by the emperor, and Arjun is a fifth-rank titled lady. Both mother and son are honored with great distinctions. May I ask, mother, what more do you want to do to show off? It would be better to go kneel at the entrance of the Shun residence now. Perhaps Arjun, seeing your sincere apology, might allow Henge to be recognized by the family in the first year of his demotion. If it weren't for Shenzhen's constant support, his mother would likely have died from illness long ago. Over the years, his mother had tried every means to match him with my Qingwan, even going so far as to drug his food and drink, yet he never yielded. In the end, his mother had no choice but to adopt her as a goddaughter, and for this, she repeatedly complained about him. She hoped he would remarry and have children, so that he could finally let go of Shenzhen and her son. Meng Zhinyan slowly closed his eyes, and a graceful figure flashed through his mind. He had to admit that, all these years, the person who still occupied his heart was Shenzhen. After laughing, he felt a desolate emptiness in his heart. In the end, he and his mother were just the same kind of people, blind in both eyes and heart, mistaking pearls for fish eyes, ungrateful and heartless, trampling true feelings into the mud. Now, this bitter fruit is one I must swallow myself. At 1001 hash. Meng Zhinyan has come looking for me and Henge several times. The gatekeeper, following Henge's instructions, stopped him at the door every time, until that mid-autumn festival night, when Henge and I returned from the market. Meng Zhinyan was waiting outside the mansion, holding a food box. In the distance, the lanterns of the street market shone brightly, with faint sounds of laughter and joy. Only this corner before him is cold and desolate as frost. The man's gaze gently falls upon Henge and me, with a hint of anticipation hidden within. Henge, this is your favorite jujube paste mooncake. I waited in line for 2 hours. Before he could finish speaking, Henge had already avoided his outstretched hand and flatly refused. You have mistaken, Lord Meng. The one who likes jujube paste mooncakes is Zheng Lin, not me. Meng Zhinyan was as if struck by lightning, the food box falling to the ground with a sharp crack. Henge was now much taller than Meng Zhinyan, who had to look up at him. All the past wrongs were my fault, causing you and your mother to suffer endless grievances, but we are still a family after all. I do not seek your forgiveness, only a chance to make amends. Henge pulled me along, not stopping her steps. Mother, let's go. Tonight's moonlight was too cold, too bright, making it impossible for anyone to hide, for instance, Henge's grievances and resentments. Meng Zhinyan's regret and shame. I suddenly remembered that mid-autumn festival night 10 years ago, as if confirming an old saying, today's fruit is yesterday's cause. Some words are better said face to face. Henge, you go back first. Mother has something to discuss with Lord Meng. Henge gave me a deep look, nodded, and left. Only then did I turn to face Meng Zhinyan. In fact, Henge's favorite was indeed the jujube paste mooncake. Meng Zhinyan's eyes suddenly lit up with a glimmer of hope. However, that was when he was 6 years old. He no longer likes it now. That glimmer of hope instantly faded. I looked intently into his eyes and asked, Meng Zhinyan, if 10 years ago, I hadn't taken Henge away, do you think Henge could have achieved what he has today? At 1001 hash. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Meng Zhinyan's breath trembled, and he was left speechless. I suppose it's impossible. I continued on my own. That year at the chrysanthemum banquet, Henge was publicly tested on his studies and couldn't compare to Zheng Lin, which embarrassed you. You were furious. But you didn't know that my Qingwan had already given Zheng Lin extra tutoring on that poem. He had memorized it perfectly. Henge had only read it twice. Yet you thought he wasn't diligent enough and punished him by making him stay half an hour longer after school. On my birthday, Henge secretly carved a wooden hairpin for me. But my Qingwan said he was neglecting his studies for trivial pursuits and confiscated all his carving knives. You even made him kneel in the ancestral hall for an hour because of it. That inkstone Zheng Lin deliberately framed him. Henge saw it with his own eyes. But when he tried to explain, did you even give him a chance to speak? And that mid-autumn festival. My Qingwan intentionally abandoned Henge in the bustling market. He was chased by stray dogs into an alley and was scared out of his wits. Do you know that Henge is now 16 years old and still wakes up from nightmares at night, all of which are filled with scenes of your cold indifference? I spoke sharply, sentence by sentence. Meng Xinyan's face turned pale inch by inch. I had mentioned to him before that my Qingwan and her son had ill intentions, but every time, he thought I was narrow-minded and couldn't tolerate others. Over the past 10 years, as I've traveled more roads and experienced more things, I gradually came to understand, the root of all problems lies with Meng Xinyan. If he had truly respected and cherished me as his wife, how could he have allowed his mother to mistreat me, my Qingwan to belittle me, and even let Henge be treated unfairly? If he truly cared for me and Henge, how could he so readily believe my Qingwan and her son? These are all things that truly happened. With a mind to investigate, every single one of them would not be hard to uncover. At that time, I relied solely on a mother's intuition, knowing that if I didn't take Henge and leave, the 4 high walls of the Meng family would trap us, mother and son, to our doom. In the end, I summed it up for him: if Henge and I do not leave, you will eventually grow to despise us one day. If it weren't for Henge's current remarkable achievements, you wouldn't regret it to this extent. Meng Xinyan seemed to anticipate what I was about to say and quickly interrupted. That's not true. For the past 10 years, I have always kept you and our son in my heart. I was foolish before, I was despicable, but it won't be like that anymore. Arjun, can you and Henge forgive me? I shook my head. No, it's not good. Henge now has a respected teacher, close friends, and me. There are many people who love him. He doesn't need you anymore. Meng Xinyan's temples were beaded with cold sweat as he staggered back half a step. My gaze lingered on his face, staring somewhat absent-mindedly for a while. In fact, Henge looks very much like him, especially the expression when frowning. It's exactly the same. For a moment, it felt ironic. Now Henge has grown into the person he most hoped for, yet all of this has nothing to do with him anymore. Raising a child is something that can never be faked. Who truly treats him with all their heart. The child has a clear mirror in their own mind. The more sincerity you pour in, the more closeness he returns. There is no account in the world fairer than this. At 1001 hash, the next time Meng Xinyan's news was heard, he had been demoted. The cause was the elders of the Meng family accusing Henge of being unfilial, refusing to acknowledge his biological father, and going against human ethics. The original plan was to pressure him behind closed doors, forcing him to recognize his ancestral roots. Unexpectedly, Henge immediately went to the palace and presented his case before the emperor, each word resonating with conviction. Back then, when my mother and Lord Meng separated, the divorce agreement clearly stated in black and white, the son shall go with the mother, and from then on, their fortunes and misfortunes shall be of no concern to each other. For 10 years, Lord Meng has given me the grace of life, but not the duty of upbringing, since paternal righteousness is lost. How can one speak of filial piety? Now I bear the surname Shun and am a son of the Shun family. The clan elders were frightened out of their wits and immediately confessed that it was my Qingwan who had instigated them behind the scenes. The emperor, known for his discernment, angrily rebuked in court. Since you have already divorced and severed ties, how dare you use filial piety to pursue personal grievances? Although the great Qi dynasty governs the world with filial piety, it is only when the father is kind that the son can be demanded. Meng Xinyan was demoted to Lingju due to his failure to properly manage his household and for allowing his relatives to frame a meritorious official of the court. My Qingwan and her son were expelled from the capital. never to return. Lingju is a remote place with high mountains and distant waters. Once gone, there would be no chance of meeting again. At that time, I was accompanying the hermit Liu. Savoring the preaching Ming tea, old man Liu stroked his beard and sighed. Back then, you were a lone woman who dared to take your child and leave your marriage. I knew then that you and your son had suffered many grievances. The fragrant steam of the tea evoked many old memories. Back then, with a heart full of solitary courage, I left with hunger, feeling lost and uncertain in every direction. Time has passed, and now when I think back, it no longer feels bitter. On the day Meng Xinyan left the capital, he sent someone to deliver a wooden box. Inside the box were neatly stacked banknotes, with many of Hunger's childhood belongings pressed beneath them. The old servant who delivered the items relayed a message from Meng Xinyan, just 8 short words. Years will pass from now on. I sincerely hope you take good care of yourself. I accepted it. Later, I heard that my Qingwan and her son had a falling out on their way out of the capital. Zheng Lin was stripped of his scholarly title, and his temperament changed drastically. He became despondent, spending his days drowning in alcohol and gambling. After losing all his travel money, he began to physically abuse his mother. The last time anyone saw them was in Lingnan. Zheng Lin snatched the last silver hairpin from my Qingwan, leaving her to fall ill in a derelict temple. She spent her entire life scheming for her son, only to end up like this in the end, however. All of this came later. When Hunger was 20 years old, the emperor began building a new naval fleet. I accompanied Hunger to his post at Jeonju Harbor. Thousands of ships in the harbor were all under his command. The boundless blue waves were parted by the new warships. The world is vast, so wander freely. End of the full text.